and welcome to Tom Myers versus the rest of the world. This episode was recorded before Vladimir Putin's complete invasion of the West. So, in honor of that event, this episode will be simulcast in both English and Russian. A trucker convoy was blocking ports of entry from Canada into the United States. American politicians wanted to do the same thing here and even had plans to block the SoFi Stadium before the Super Bowl. It's Los Angeles traffic. Who would know the difference? In Los Angeles traffic, the 5 freeway can turn into a parking lot if a motorist stops to look at a nude selfie Britney Spears posted on Instagram. It would be interesting to see them do that outside M&T Bank Stadium before a Ravens game. Of course, those poor truckers would probably get shot. And that would be before the Baltimore City Police got there. Jeopardy fans are taking issue with the phrasing used by part-time host Mayim Bialik. They're upset because she's referring to the first round of the game as Single Jeopardy. I think those Jeopardy fans are just upset at the fact that, unlike them, Mayim Bialik actually has a life. And on that note, on with the show. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Hyson, Abby Mello, and Devine Kerr. Devine, welcome back. How are things?
I unlocked a brand new achievement this week, you guys. I was banned from an air frying group on Facebook.
What?
Because I posted recipes that confused people because they posted things that were bland and I had ethnic ingredients that they didn't know where they were going to find. And I did not know that racism existed even in an air frying group. So, yep. This is what happens when all the Karens finally become managers.
So they wanted boring, white-centric, air-fried foods, and you made foods with your air fryer with flavor and spices.
Yes. I mean, I wrapped a hot dog in a prata that you can buy at Wegmans. I mean, it's in the produce. It's at Wegmans. I didn't even say, I hesitated. I didn't even say like international grocery because I know it would scare them off. But I said, you can even find it at Walmart in the freezer section, a prata. It's like an onion naan, and I wrapped the sausage in there and put it in the air fryer, and that was scary for them. I had so much questions, and people were like, I don't know where to find this. This is scaring me. And yep, I got banned.
What was the name of this group? Make air frying great again?
Yeah.
That's too many characters for them to type in, I think.
Yeah, it's been a weird few weeks. I don't know if there were parents outside of schools bribing kids with donuts to make sure they don't wear masks.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That's insane, right? But then my kid took a donut and then put a mask back on and ran away.
I love that kid already.
He's fun.
During the pandemic, a new online game became the craze as Wordle can often be referenced in one's social media feeds. I haven't cared to look it up, but I imagine Wordle is actually cracked for grannies and millennials who got COVID after licking clean the collapsible table on which they play beer pong. Please join me in welcoming back to the show science writer Tara Haley.
Hello. Hello.
Tara, welcome back. I think we've had you on once before when I think the pandemic was sort of rampant and going unchecked. It was before the 2020 election. I mean, now that we've seen like vaccines be administered, a new administration taking over. What's your view on this, on how things are going now? Is it, in your mind, has it gotten better or?
Oh God, no. I find it amusing that you said last time we talked, the cases were raging when at this exact moment in time, we have more 7-day average cases than we've ever had. We're on the downslide from Omicron, but before Omicron, the highest peak of Delta, we still have more cases right now than we had then. And yet everybody seems to think the pandemic is over. So I'd say things have gotten, things are better in that we have vaccines. Nothing can change the fact that is the most important, that makes a huge difference in terms of avoiding severe disease, hospitalizations, and death. But beyond that, and we've got, like orange Cheeto out of office or whatever. So that's, that's a plus. I have felt more frustrated and demoralized in the past couple of weeks than I have for much of the rest of the pandemic, because there's so many things that are going wrong right now.
Yeah,
I know. And honestly, the fact, I'm sure a lot of your listeners will be surprised to hear me say that. And that's what's wrong. Like, that's the problem. The problem is that we're all exhausted. We're all over it. We all want to move on. And that's not how pandemics work.
No? Just
No,
because we're tired of it?
It's funny. Okay. I have generally, like most people, not been a fan of the war analogy, right? Like war on drugs, war on terror, war on fill in the blank is usually a bad analogy, right? This is the one time when I wish we had used it, because it makes sense to say, if I were to say to somebody, hey mom, when can we turn on the lights and just leave them on during the blitz? Everybody would understand what a dumb question that is, like what a nonsensical question that is, and the fact that it's not answerable. And yet we have hundreds and hundreds of people saying, so when can we take the masks off? Well, I mean, like, do you think I have a crystal ball? I mean, the danger isn't less now than it was, X times ago, except for the fact of having vaccines. I mean, obviously for individuals, the risk for vaccinated people is definitely lower. But in terms of public health risk, it's still way up there. And people just don't seem to care.
Yeah, Tara, what advice, because this came up at my own organization very recently this week, they're seeking feedback about, because Hogan lowered the mask mandate where I work is in Baltimore County, and we don't want to go back. We want to keep the masks. I think that's the general consensus. And so my supervisor sort of asked us all, like, what are your opinions on this? Because the pushback is they said they were not going to, but that we all need to think about how we're going to transition to an endemic. And my attitude is like, let's at least get through the rest of this semester before we start talking about whether we're not going to wear masks in classrooms and stuff like that. But anyway, what's your advice for, like, what should we be telling our administration that is compelling? Because they keep saying we're going to listen to the science, we're going to listen to the evidence, but they're also getting all of this pushback from the county and the government.
Right. There's a couple of things to throw out there. First of all, one thing that shouldn't be a barrier, but is just getting them to recognize that masks work. I mean, it's become a new thing to say, oh, well, when Germany all were required to wear masks, their cases were higher than ours were when we weren't required to. Yeah, well, Germany also tests all of its citizens and we don't. So, there's a lot of confounders when they try and do these, they're called ecological studies. When you do a big population comparison, like this city had a mask mandate and that city didn't. And then you're like, but the infections were the same. And I'm all like, okay, what's the population density? What's the age breakdown? What was the compliance rate? What's the attitudes of the people? What were their social distancing? How many vaccinated? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that matter when you try and do those comparisons, and that's not happening. So just re-upping the fact that masks do actually prevent, or I hate using the word prevent, I've been using reduce. They do reduce transmission. What I would tell them is that, mask requirements should be pegged to actual metrics. It's not when you get tired of wearing it. It's not when everybody else gets tired of wearing it and relaxes theirs. You should be looking at vaccination rate, test positivity, and case rates. Okay. So if you're looking at those case rates, what's the actual transmission in your area? Hospitalization and death rates matter for public health. But in terms of actually knowing, like, is there a lot of COVID in this office? You've got to know local transmission rates. Test positivity tells you if there's enough people even getting tested and how many of them are positive. And then vaccination rates give you a sense of, like, what is the sort of a base level of, I'll say, quasi herd immunity, because with Omicron, it does have immune evasion. Your vaccine, it can't stop most infections, but it'll stop some. So there is some protection there in that regard. But when you put those three things together, if you say, okay, you've got, and what those magic numbers are, I don't know. I would say that I would definitely, if you look at the CDC's, like, low, moderate, high, and substantial, I think, are their four breakdowns. I would say nothing at high or above. You should even be thinking about removing a mask. And right now, the whole entire country is insubstantial. There's not a single state that's not. We just are pretending like that's not the case.
The suspicious nature of Donald Trump supporters is that they no longer believe anything any current or former government official says. even if that official is Trump himself. In this clip, we can hear his supporters' reactions when Trump suggests taking the COVID vaccine.
We did a great job on that. The ventilators, the equipment that we got, the cupboards were all bare, everything that we did. And then we developed a vaccine, 3 vaccines in 3 months, in 9 months. And actually, I'll tell you, it was 3 days less than 9 months. And it's great. And you know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. Bree, you got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine. If it doesn't work, you'll be the first to know, okay? I'll call up Alabama and say, hey, you know what? But it is working. But you do have your freedoms. You have to maintain that. You have to maintain that. And you got to get your kids back to school.
Trump was shell-shocked that that crowd was even Trumpier than Trump himself.
You see, right there, Tom, there was just another time when that son of a bitch could have helped save lives, but he didn't do it. And there were so many times while he was in office, but let's think back to when he returned to the White House from Walter Reed, where he received greater medical attention and care than anybody else could. And he walked up the stairs slowly, but he made it up the stairs and he looked out at the staff standing there and he took off his mask. And if he kept it on, people might have understood that if he can get it, I can get it. But he took his mask off. And then when he got the shot, he didn't have a photographer there for a picture to put on Twitter or whatever platform he's using. Same with his wife. And right there was another example where he said, you have your freedoms. So he's excusing them not taking the vaccines, which he thinks he created.
Although Florida is the new home state for the 45th president, it is becoming a hotbed of Trump acolytes to the point where they will all outdo each other. In the best position to do so is the state's chief executive, Governor Ron DeSantis. In this clip, we hear him speaking to a maskless crowd this past New Year's Eve, bragging about enforcing his state's lack of COVID measures.
Well, good evening. Wish y'all a happy new year. And I'm glad we're going to be able to celebrate the new year in the freest state in the United States. And I want to thank you, and really, if you see what's happened over the past year and a half in this country, Florida, we stood up for your freedom. We stood up for your rights. We were not going to let government take away the rights that are the gift from God, not from government. Florida, you can mark it down. We will not let anyone shut you down.
I like how that humming noise kept going in the background while DeSantis was speaking. That humming noise is actually what Omicron sounds like as it's going around and just feeding on everybody in that crowd.
It sounds like a horror movie.
Plus, that crowd screaming, that's probably the last time their lungs are going to be in any condition to do that. So, and also when he says, government didn't do this, God did this, it's probably the most amazing inadvertent self-own ever. Like he says, please give me your applause, even though I didn't have a fucking thing to do with this.
What a disgusting human being he is. And he continues to advance his political career off the dead bodies of his citizens.
Yeah. What I was going to say is I worry he's going to be our next president.
Oh,
He thinks so.
New York City is one of the many urban areas requiring proof of vaccination for someone to enjoy public accommodations. While a vast majority of the city's residents and visitors are willing to comply with these safety measures, there is a handful who believe them to be unjust, and, of course, they will be the loudest, as we can see and hear in this clip of an impromptu protest at a Burger King.
Stop! We gotta remain calm. We gotta remain calm. I urge them. Listen! Listen! The fuck! Listen!
Mitch, calm down.
So listen
Calm
then.
down. I know
Now
I'm
you
listening
fucking
to you.
listen.
You calm the fuck down.
Listen.
You
This is
calm the
all
fuck
doing
down.
your stuff. If you're with me, we need to lock hands.
No, seriously. You're gonna deny your 5-year-old
We
boy?
need to lock
Are you
it
guys
off.
gonna deny
If
children?
you're willing, lock it off.
Cops are here.
Lock it off. Who is willing to lock in arms with me? Who is willing to lock in arms with me?
Oh Lord.
And go
Please
all
stop
the way.
putting this down.
That's what I want to know. Who's gonna lock it off?
This is a good one.
I want to know who will
I can't. I just can't, dude.
arms with me.
No segregation, no discrimination, no segregation. She's wearing a shade.
You can't tell me that I can't eat. I really lost my job. And you guys are paying to be kept under oath for long. And that should be my right. This is not a law. It's not a law.
Mandates are not laws. Mandates are not laws. Mandates are not laws. Mandates are not laws. Mandates are not laws.
That's the hill they decided to die on, like that and Cheesecake Factory, right? They had a whole sit down where they mobilized the whole Cheesecake Factory. Did you guys hear about that one too? Like what next is Arby's and our Applebee's. You know?
The Cheesecake Factory is a paragon of health.
And most of the people in that crowd, they look fairly calm. They're like, I just want some fucking onion rings.
Yeah, Tom, can you actually explain to me what I saw in that video? Because I'm so confused about who is on what side. And like, so the guy, I could not make out what the guy in the MLK shirt was screaming. And then the other woman, at first sounded like she was yelling at him. And then I think she was on his side. I don't know whose side anyone was on. And I need a recap.
I don't think they know either.
I think it's the future of the anti-vax movement, basically, where they're all just devouring each other, which they can't, unfortunately, because they need a vaccination card in order to be able to do that.
So everybody in that video was on the same side?
No, there were a bunch of people in line who were just trying to get food. And then there were
Okay.
the employees, like just, looking at their watches, waiting for their shift to be up. And then there were the people who were trying to stage a protest against vaccine requirements there, which
In the middle of the line of the other people. Okay.
Yeah, they were trying to say like, we shouldn't. I don't remember why they chose that place. I remember when this video came out, but I don't
They
remember.
wanted to make the Impossible Burger more impossible to get.
I just want to say, I know this is a audio podcast, not a visual podcast, but so many, is everyone just a professional film crew in New York City? People were busting out like boom mics out of their backpacks and like filming. I mean, ridiculous.
You clearly have not done enough comedy in New York City, Abby. All right. Those of us who know,
Everybody's got a tripod and
it's the continuation of the outdoor comedy boom that took place in New York City in the summer of 2020.
You're right. They actually just showed up. There was an open mic at that Burger King, actually. And
Who books this?
Mask mandates and vaccine requirements have consistently been the source of major conflict and a huge conservative talking point. Basically, a portion of Americans are upset that COVID and not mass shootings is the riskiest thing their children can experience in schools.
I'm sorry. I'm a parent of young kids. I feel it, man.
Me too.
In the county in which I live, people give our school system a lot of shit for closing schools, even when there only turns out to be a dusting of snow on the ground. There is another factor to consider. Our county's hospitals are so full of COVID patients that they are unable to handle even one school bus crash. Upon his inauguration, New Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin signed an executive order making mask mandates optional in the Commonwealth School District. His order was temporarily blocked by a court thanks to some concerned parents, and at the time of this recording, Virginia's legislature is pushing through a bill banning mask mandates for students. In this clip, we can hear Page County, Virginia Public Schools parent Amelia King and her anger about her child being forced to protect other students.
No mask mandates. My children will not come to school on Monday with a mask on. All right? That's not happening. And I will bring every single gun loaded and ready to, I will call every.
Okay, that's 3 minutes. You've gone past your time. It's a policy. Thank you.
I'll see y'all on Monday.
I mean, gun culture must be so common in some parts of Virginia that the one thing the school board members are upset about in that moment anyway is the fact that she's gone past her 3 minutes. Like it's no big thing. I mean, Daveen, you're a parent of a kid in Virginia schools. I mean, you might be in a different area of the state, but I mean, is this starting to be more common?
Yes, and the parents in my area sound just like her. She's not a isolated case. And by the way, Youngkin sounds like his family fucks chickens, by the way. But I kept my
for the record, for legal reasons, that's not true. To the best of her knowledge.
As far as you know.
As far as we know. Okay, speculation. But I when that video came out, I actually kept my kids home for 2 days, and I just don't understand why we can't stay home. And she threatened. That was a threat, and then she backed out. She almost got away with it, but then later on, she got some penalty or something. But she was like, "What were they, like toy guns?" She meant, what did she mean? A water gun? Loaded with what?
I will bring all of my kids' super soakers to the next meeting.
I kind of wonder, I mean, as someone who lives in Texas, lots of similarities to Virginia, obviously. I mean, you're the outlier if you don't own a gun here. I wonder if two things crossed my mind when that was happening. One, was her time actually up, or was that the excuse they gave to shut her up? Two, I wonder if they knew better than to pick that fight, because when you're dealing with someone like that, you got to pick your battles. And I felt like she was baiting them and they just didn't take the bait, because if they had tried to say, you can't threaten, then she would have gone off about Second Amendment gun rights, and they weren't going to step into that trap. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but when I run into people here who say stuff like that, I know they're baiting me. They want me to push back on it. And so when I just dismiss it as though they didn't say anything shocking at all, that actually frustrates them more.
It's not only parents, but students who are weighing in on the mask debate. Fiona Lachelle's, an 8-year-old girl, was suspended nearly 40 cumulative days for not wearing a face mask in her school and became a hero to the right and to the anti-mask contingent, even scoring a seat next to her state's governor, Ron DeSantis, during a segment on the Fox and Friends morning show. The fame one gets from conservative media watchers got to Fiona's head, and she eventually morphed into one of their key target viewers and developed their vocabulary, as we can see in this clip where she speaks to her county's school board.
Hi, I am Fiona Lachelles. I was on my 36th day of suspension. Last night, my mom got a phone call about if I could go on the news with the governor. And my mom asked me, and I said yes. So if you didn't see the Fox and Friends morning news, you should go see me and the governor. He told you to stop. What you're doing to me is illegal. And even though you guys are suspending me, I'm still going to stand up for what I believe in. And nothing's going to change my mind. That is not fair. I still have the right not to wear a mask, and I'm not going to wear one. I'm doing this for other kids and not just myself. And I hope you all go to jail for doing this to me. And Mr. Berg, I want to say you suck, but...
Turn off the microphone. Turn it off. Turn it off. Next speaker, come to the microphone.
There's a certain contingent of Americans who make a fuss about public schools indoctrinating their children. But meanwhile, that's not the public school system,
No, that's parents.
making her say that.
You know what kills me about that clip? I'm doing this not just for me, but for other kids. Really? What about my kids who, if they get sick when you don't wear a mask, might accidentally kill their father? What about the kids that are friends of mine, that my kids are friends with, that are immune compromised, that are going through cancer, things? What about the kids who have a grandmother at home? Are you doing it for those kids? Because what the parents are teaching that kid is, I don't give a damn about anybody else but myself. My freedom matters more than your health or even your life. That's what they've taught their kid. That's not doing anything for anybody else. I get angry. I can't even talk about it because I'm so angry.
Kids say the darndest things that are written down and scripted for them and forced to say. It's amazing.
She's a guest on the next episode of Joe Rogan's podcast.
Very good.
2-to-1 odds she'll be singing Christmas carols on next year's Newsmax Christmas special. In conclusion, the saddest thing about COVID deniers is they will be with us for a long time. Ironically, it seems they'll be the ones to really survive this pandemic. The ones that haven't are the martyrs of the COVID denial movement. They feel as though their heroes died because they were denied the Joe Rogan diet of ivermectin and whatever crap he and Alex Jones peddle on their shows. Their conspiracy theories about their deaths will be so outlandish, they will say in years' time that their comrades in arms in this movement will have been Epsteined. Of course, I don't believe the conspiracy theories that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, mainly because Epstein was so committed to and believed in euthanasia.
Oh my God.
The pandemic has really...
I started to say that was a groaner, and then I thought, well, yeah, it sure is.
The pandemic has really helped me put things into perspective. My 77-year-old father, who has been smoking since high school, meaning he's been smoking for 60 years, has always given my family concern whenever he's experienced a lengthy smoker's cough. However, the pandemic has alleviated those concerns, as my siblings and I can look at each other and say, thank God Dad might only have emphysema. Doing Zoom comedy, I find I perform at various points in the day. For example, if I perform at Zoom comedy shows where time zone adjustments mean I perform in the morning, it means I end up waiting for my set to start while drinking coffee. And in a sense, my parents are right. If I pursued a career in comedy, then I would end up doing drugs at all hours of the night. I've made some discoveries doing Zoom comedy. For example, I cannot wear green anymore on a Zoom show because thanks to my new green screen, I look like a disembodied head. And I don't want to add to my haters' fantasies and wet dreams. When my nieces and nephews ask what I do, I tell them I do adult stuff on Zoom. And then it dawned on me. I probably should phrase it differently. What if I'm not doing comedy anymore when they're all grown up and they learn about what adults do online? What if they think I was into some weird eyes wide shut orgy scene bullshit and exposing myself for everyone in the Zoom room to see? I'm not sure that I want my nieces and nephews to think that I opened for Louis C.K. I had a comment on a YouTube video of mine recently. In a video where I discussed my nieces and nephews, a user commented, I think it's funny he refers to himself as Uncle Tom. Well, yeah, I have nieces and nephews. My name's Tom, and that's just what they happen to call me. What a point to make. Where was I going with that? I don't know. I like everybody to watch and enjoy me. Even the non-Einsteins. Keep them coming, everybody. And on that note, that's our show. I want to thank Jeff Hyson, Abby Millo, Devine Kerr, and Tara Haley.
Hey, thank you, Tom.
Good to see
Thank
everybody.
you, Tom.
This episode was written and hosted by Tom Myers with panelists Jeff Hyson, Abby Mello, and Devine Kerr, and guest Tara Haley. Theme music by Jeroen Vandenurk. Executive producers Tom Myers, Matt Connerton for IPM Nation, and Eddie Carson for Odyssey Radio. Thank you for listening, and please visit tommyers.us.